Welcome to Professors on Air. We are Gayatri and Nilesh, your host, and in today's episode, we are joined by Sathya Prasad, a tech leader with over 30 years of global experience, including 2 decades at Intel. Sathya Sir has been at the forefront of product management and innovation, contributing to breakthrough server technologies and leading key initiatives like Intel's first system on chip. He also played a pivotal role in launching SolarCon India, a platform that helped shape India's solar industry, and founded a tech innovation hub at PES University that empowers students with modern frameworks for entrepreneurship. Now a mentor to startups and a guest faculty at IIM Bangalore, Sir brings invaluable insights into tech innovation, product strategy, and leadership. In this episode, we'll dive into his career journey, the challenges of driving tech transformation, and his advice for future leaders in the tech space. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Before we start, could you please elaborate more on your journey, where you started, and more importantly, why you do what you do, and how has it been so far?
Great. Mine is a slightly unconventional career path. So I'm going to take maybe a minute or two to kind of describe this, what seems like a chaotic journey, but there's actually, and I figured it out much later that there was a method to the madness. So my career spans two different broad areas. One, steeped in technology, the other in, we'll call it management, right? Management includes strategy, planning, marketing, and the like, right? So I have a strong background in technology. I have a master's in VLSI or EE. So my fascination for semiconductors started, right back when I was in school. So in fact, most people won't believe it. This chip was built by me 30 years ago. We are all gaga over AI now, but this is an AI chip, actually a neural net chip that was built on 2-micron process as part of my master's thing. So in some sense, I'm a geek, right? I mean, I've been very deep in analog circuits and such. The other part of it is, the tech part of it is how do you build a product, right? What are all the things that go into it? And the other part is, okay, now that you've built it, hopefully there is a customer who can buy it. And why would they buy it? How would they buy it? How much would they pay for it? So these are the two broad areas that I've explored over the last 30 years. And if I were to kind of give you the chronological view quickly, I started at Intel straight out of school. This was my passport to getting into Intel because they said, "Hey, this is an interesting guy. You've got a chip, so come on over and work on even better chips, right?" So spent close to 20 years. Did hardcore engineering, then moved to technical marketing. Give me a great opportunity to go talk to customers, understand the requirements, bring those requirements back in, and help build better products. And then sort of the startup bug, if you will, bit me. And I just moved back to India, spent a few years back at Intel again, and then I seized this opportunity to go start SEMI. SEMI stands for Semiconductor Equipment and Material International. It's very haloed organization. It's as old as the semiconductor industry. They wanted to come to India, and the solar mission in India was just booming. Helped start that initiative, built a platform for business to business to government, all of that fun stuff. And in my last phase, which is now having so much fun, running what I would call as a student innovation center, right? Which is the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, where I get to meet brilliant folks like you. And this is a very enthusiastic crowd. They come in, there's lots of tech, there's people from design, biotech, mech, and all of that. And they're trying to make sense of what they can do with the knowledge that they gain in a university. And is it possible to build a product? Is it possible to build a solution? Can you get started when you are in the university? And obviously it's not easy, but the passion and the excitement is there. And so what CIE tries to do is to help channelize some of that and help them on their journey in discovering what their passions are, right? So in a nutshell, sort of tech management, entrepreneurship, education, I work closely with startups because the product journey in the early days, right? When you're building, when you don't have a roadmap, I mean, how do you build a roadmap?
True.
Some of the challenges that come. Those are some interesting things that I love to tackle, and we also do some courses and such. But I'll wait for your questions to come in terms of what we do at CIE and such. But I hope that's useful for a young audience like yours. Many of you might be coming from an engineering background, but even if you don't come from an engineering background, what's the world out there when you finish your MBA? What are the kind of exciting opportunities that are there? I think this is an exciting time to be, where you guys are.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, it's actually remarkable given the kind of diverse career journey that you've had, especially because a lot of students in our university are wanting to be product managers. And one issue that a lot of them face is a lack of experience. But given the kind of career journey that you've had and also your expertise in a vast area of fields, it is definitely helpful for them to kind of get and understand in a nutshell as to how they can frame their journey to be like and what they can expect in that area.
And also in those areas in which India now is currently uh, trying to exploit, like semiconductors, or and the booming one is startups. So you have seen both worlds. So that's something really crazy for me.
Continuing on your career journey with a remarkable 20-year tenure at Intel, and as one of the first employees at Intel India's server division, you've contributed to breakthrough products in the server space while also playing a pivotal role in setting up the Intel India Development Center for Servers. Could you share some of the key challenges you faced in building this greenfield organization and a lesson from that journey that has shaped your approach to product management and tech innovation?
Yeah, wonderful. It's when I look back at this period of my life, I came to India thinking that I was going to be working on the next most fanciful microprocessor ever built. And it was indeed that way. It was in fact, we were way too ahead of our times. And it was a super complex product that we tried to build. And one of the early realizations was that, when you build a product, you make a number of assumptions. Many of those assumptions turn out to be wrong, right?
True.
A very humbling feeling, right? It's nice to be able to say something like this in a podcast, but when you're actually going through, it's almost hell, right? Let me give you an example. So we came thinking that, yeah, we'll build a great microprocessor out of, this new location. And then we quickly realized that we did not have the compute, right? The data center was just not there. And when we looked around and said, hey, we'd like to set up this data center, people said, what's a data center? This was in 2002, July. Right? So then we said, okay, all right, let's go build our own data center. So while my day job was a strategic planner, meaning I was responsible for putting together the business plan for this chip, and I can tell you the name, but don't Google too much because you'll see some mentions of it because it disappeared. It's called Whitefield. And it was a multiprocessor with lots of features, fancy features and such. And then rather than work on that, I mean, my day job was to come up with the business plan for that. But, in essence, what I was actually doing was putting together, how to build a data center, right? And I did not know the first thing about how to build data centers. So we hired people. In fact, we cajoled, coaxed, convinced people who had built that in the US to come back. And remember, this was in 2002 when, there were not that many people who were moving back to India. So one of the first lessons was, when you pick the charge of delivering a product, right? In fact, most of you guys would have heard about it. Manager is also called the mini CEO, right? In fact, you own
Yeah.
that. That's yours. And in order to build a microprocessor, we said, oh, hey, we need a data center. Okay, that's your day job as well. Go get a data center built, which was never given to me as part of my job description. So like that, I can go on. And the other thing was we were starting a greenfield, office, right? A first R&D center in India for the server group. Where are you going to get people from? And this was a time when, there was only TI. And I think there was one memory company. It was literally you could have counted the semiconductor companies on the back of your hand, right? So where do you get people from? So we said, okay, let's just go to the, renowned institutions, the IITs, ISC, and pick fresh graduates, bring them in, train them. So the two examples that I gave you just, right, going and building a data center, working like an HR person, trying to get talent on board, get them trained, get them useful to design a microprocessor. They had never designed a microprocessor before. Were some of the key challenges that came about. And we did a good job, I think, of trying to build all. We had a very successful data center, but I think there were many such assumptions that turned out to be not valid. And what that led to was the significant delay for a super complex, brand new product in a brand new place. And essentially, we dove into the ground. So the big lesson for me was one, uh, quickly test the assumptions. Don't go into the battlefield thinking that all the things that we knew or we know are going to hold true. That's number one. Two, be prepared for surprises. Three, the thing that made this whole journey so enjoyable was we built a phenomenal team, right? And the same team got reincarnated, built wonderful products, in fact, won several Intel Achievement Awards and such. So even though that particular product failed, what we had in essence built was the foundation of a great product team, right? And building a microprocessor is not a trivial task. It has many different functions. You need people of all different, background, skills, experience. But we had assembled a great team that could actually go off and build some amazing products later down the road. So that's a lesson for me, that, first list out the assumptions, second, validate them, have plan B, plan C in case your plan A, B, C don't work. And the next one is build a great team. If nothing else, build a great team because they'll eventually go on to build some amazing products later down the road. These are some of the, I would say, hard fought lessons learned from that particular experience.
Uh, I actually want to follow up on that question so what do you look in a team when you are building a team? I
Yeah.
mean, uh,
So I'll tell you something that, is probably not there in most textbooks, and we don't study that in, organizational design or thing. It's really the soul of a team, right? It's very hard to put your fingers on it and, define it. What I mean by the soul of a team is what essentially drives. Look, at the end of the day, a team is not a homogeneous thing, right? A team is made up of people. People come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. My liking and my objectives, my agenda, what I consider a success is going to be very different from somebody else in finance and marketing and architecture, production, manufacturing, right? So the uh, a wonderful team is one where, we all identify with a higher purpose. And I'll give you an example, right? The higher purpose for this team that came together for the very first time, despite all these obstacles, great number of uncertainties, unknowns, was the dream to go off and build the most complex device on the planet out of India. Okay, that was just the thing, right? In some ways, we were naive, right? Why did we choose to build such a complex product in the first go, right? That was probably stupidity, right? I wish we had more awareness, more knowledge. Of course, I've lost a lot of my hair, but I was not as wise as I am now because of the past experience, right? So the team really is when you're building a team. It doesn't matter whether it's microprocessors or you're building a bridge or you're building an AI or an LLM, is to assemble a set of people who are super excited about a cause. And that cause is not building a product, a cause is not building software or hardware or system, but it's something much more deeper. Good leaders are able to bring out, they're able to surface that objective, share it with people, help them understand, help them absorb it, and then reflect that in their work, right? So a package designer, a logic designer, a circuit designer, a layout designer, they all have that same burning ambition. Can we go build that one super duper product out of India, right? So finding that cause and finding that defines the soul of a team. And once you build a team like this, I can guarantee you that the kind of products that you'll end up building is just going to be phenomenal, right? So that's what I mean by building a great team.
Yeah, so I will be following up on the same your experience at Intel. You led product management for Intel's first system on chip. What were the most significant challenges in bringing this groundbreaking product to market, and how did your team navigate them?
Yeah. So actually, there's a full 1 hour talk that I do for some of the MNC product innovation folks, right? So I'll try and boil that into a nutshell for your audience. The first thing, and by the way, I'm going to say something that's probably not very popular, right? So I'm a deep techie at heart. But what I realized in the building of this blockbuster product was it's not the technology that actually makes the product win. It's a bunch of other things. And this goes back to probably what you're currently exploring, studying, researching, which is why do we even build this product, right? Who's my customer? Why do they need it? What is his or her problem? What is my customer's customer uh, dealing with? So understanding a whole bunch of things that are absolutely got nothing to do with technology is the first starting point for building, what I would call a breakthrough product. And our search for this was a 2 year search, and we built 4 prototypes. All of them failed. Okay. And for various reasons. One, it just didn't make the financial cut. It just didn't make sense to build a super complex monster because it didn't justify the returns on investment. The second one was we conceived something that we thought, would change the shape of, computing. And then the manufacturing guys came back and told us like 6 months later that, hey, this is great, nice piece of design, but we can never build it with the quality assumptions that you guys are. So there were a number of reasons, right? So it took us about 2 years and I don't know, countless interactions with customers in China, in Vietnam, in India, in US, Israel, because this is a global product, right? I mean, you don't just go talk to a few customers and then come back and build a product. So we went around, and one of the things that we thought we'll build the next most powerful SoC that will do this or do that, right? High bandwidth memory, low power, graphics, performance, and all that. But in the end, what ended up happening that made this the basis of a blockbuster product was we discovered something in those course of 2 years. That one of the things that had not been addressed was not just performance, but what we called as density, performance density. Meaning, if you take a room, and this is 2011, 2012, the internet is just shooting like a rocket. There are data centers coming in. People are having Facebook accounts now. Suddenly, there's Instagram. There's a whole bunch of other things that are happening. Facebook more than Instagram is Facebook, right? So the data centers were shooting, and one of the requirements that they came in, and nobody told us this requirement. That's another beauty, right? This is like Steve Jobs, who always says, "Look, no customers ever come and told me to go build an iPod or an iPhone or an iPad. Nobody asked me that." But it's sensing what is missing in the marketplace, and in all of the course of the conversations of those 2 years, failed products, failed prototypes, failed ideas. We realized that what people were fundamentally trying to do was to fit in the maximum amount of computing for a given volume of space. Okay, so we defined a term called density, meaning not only is power important, not only is performance important, density is important. So we built the thesis around the fact that you need an SoC, a system on a chip, that has fantastic performance at a fantastically power envelope, but that enables an amazing level of compute density. Now, initially, we were also again naive assumptions. We say we'll design this CPU or SoC that is very dense, and then it turned out that in order to deliver the customer value, all right, at a data center level, we had to redo the CPU or the SoC. We had to redo the system. We had to ultimately redo the entire chassis, right? So it turned out into a fairly mega exercise. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to shoot a home video movie, and next thing you're getting your 4K camera, then you are shooting using some Bollywood level cameras and sound and production features. So that this turned out to be one of those things, because when you have to deliver the end customer value, you can't just say, I'll give you a great CPU. The customers don't care about CPU or an SO. What they care about is, hey, how did you help me solve my problem 10x better than what I was doing before? So we re-engineered, the SoC or the CPU, the central processing unit, the system, the platform, and the entire thing, and then delivered that solution, right? So that was a remarkable, uh, aha moment that you need to think beyond the product, right? Even though you're a product manager, you need to think beyond the product and ultimately deliver customer value. And the customer value we were able to actually quantify, and I can't share that with you, but we were able to quantify saying, like, if you bought this CPU and the system, here's the kind of savings, here's the kind of number of users that you can handle with the same amount of compute that is in this density and such, right? So extracting very clear, discernible customer value, conveying that value proposition in a very clear manner, articulating it in I would say, both a qualitative and a quantitative way that appeals to, because your customer is not one customer, right? I mean, even if I'm selling it to HP has, there's an architecture team that evaluates this. There's a finance team that says, does this make sense? There's a marketing team that says, does it fit my overall, customer needs and branding and bunch of things. So for enterprise products, you're actually not building a product for a single person, right? You're building it for a diverse set of things, even though it's a single product. And then understanding the spectrum of, deciders, right? How do they decide, and making sure that they understand your value proposition is an extremely key thing.
Yes, sir. When you speak about creating value for the customers, with your experience in tech innovation and R&D, how do you approach the balance between customer needs and technological feasibility while creating new products?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I would say that, customer value always trumps technological triumphs, right? So as good engineers, me included, me and my teammates always wanted to build the latest, coolest technology.
Yeah.
Like you want to say, oh, hey, 14 nanometer, cutting edge process, fastest thing. I can pack, X billion transistors. It's got all these features. It's got this speed and feed and all that. Customers don't care. So the first part is to really truly understand, and that's why we had that meandering journey in the desert, if you will, for those 2 years, because we were coming up with these crazy ideas of improving performance, graphics, networking, all of that. By the way, we built that into the product. It's not like we didn't do any of that, but it needs a higher purpose. And the higher purpose is, are we solving a real problem for a real customer? So I think you have to be able to balance. And if you have to pick between those two, the customer value prop and the technology part, always start with the customer value prop, understand, your customer, understand your customer's customer, understand the constraints, right? I'm sure you will be studying something called, there's a very famous theory put forth by Clayton Christensen called the jobs to be done theory, right? JTBD for short. So if you're not familiar with it, please familiarize yourself with this concept of jobs to be done theory, which really articulates not so much in terms of features and functions, but really understanding what the customer is trying to do. Once you understand that and are able to internalize it, share it with your team, then it helps you in bringing together some amazing technology ideas and concepts to support that value proposition. And then you deploy the technology, build that out, help deliver the value prop, and then you essentially have magic on your hands.
Yeah, so continuing on the customers part, so you have worked across different customer segments. I want to know how the customers across Europe, Japan, US, or in Taiwan. Uh, so how does their customer needs change? Uh, just a second. Yeah. So how does their customer needs change? Their market trends and technological priorities shape of product strategy.
Yeah, it's a very broad question. I'll pick a
Mm.
few aspects of it that might, be helpful for you to kind of understand. So it's the same product that's going to get in my case, it was a system on a chip that would go into
Yeah.
a system that would go into a data center, and let's say it's part of the front end of a three-tier web architecture, just for sake of simplicity, right? Um, so whether it's Europe, Japan, or US, this box is going to be doing the same. But the method of, essentially selling it, the method of winning customers over to understand or to agree with your value prop is very different, right? So what is helpful for a product manager, a global product manager, is to also understand the nuances of cultural differences. The way you sell a product, an enterprise product in India, is going to be extremely different from the sales cycle that you would go through for a B2B product in the US versus China versus Japan versus Europe. Maybe that's a much longer conversation, but there are ways to come up to speed on that. Right? One is just there are some cultural sensitivity classes that I was subjected to, right? They said, okay, if you're going to be dealing with the Japanese, you should have at least done these, taken these 6 modules of this course, right? And today, what I did was 30 years ago. So I think the cultural sensitivity part is something that global managers really need to come up to speed. The second is, building a very strong network within the company. Let's say you're working for Amazon. You, your colleagues sitting in other parts of the geographies, will have a much better feel for, the marketplace, the local customs, the selling cycle, or, the approach, the regulatory. There is simply no way that, I'm going to ever become an expert, but building those important connections with your teammates in other geographies, because they are going to be your eyes and ears, and in many cases your mouth, right? So in Japan, even though most people can speak English, but they never do. They speak only Japanese, and they speak only amongst themselves, and then you need your field applications engineer, FAE or FSE, field sales engineer, to sort of interpret it back to you. So there are different ways that the team at a people level function. So I would say, building very strong, first, a self-awareness, right, of the things that, we all have the way we deal with people, our own biases and such, and understanding that. The second part is to know how other people, relate to time, for instance. Like in Germany, meetings start roughly a minute or two before the meeting starts, right? Everybody's there, and, very formal, da da da. Uh, Japan is very different. I would say China is very different. US is much more relaxed, much more.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it is building very strong linkages with your own team and people of the other of other companies, and building the trust and the relationship. So product managers, the best product managers that I've known, are able to build trust when none exists, right? When they start from scratch, they're able to, whatever they say, whether it's the market numbers, whether it's the features, the attributes, the discussions, they're able to build a sense of trust on which a number of other things do. So good product managers, if you can, from a cultural perspective, you were talking about different cultures. How do you engender trust with different cultures is a very important thing. It's both an art and a science, and I would highly recommend you folks to take a look at it. And there are many ways to do it, but it's an important aspect.
Mm.
So I would actually like to focus more on the India part. So as a founding member of Semi India, you launched SolarCon India, a B2B platform for solar industry. What was the most rewarding aspect of leading this platform, and how did it contribute to success of India's national solar mission?
Yeah. So the topic of solar is an extremely complex one, right? It's driven heavily by regulatory things. For instance, the electricity that's generated from the solar panels is ultimately put onto the grid. And the minute you touch the grid, there are all kinds of regulatory bodies that come into play, right? So the challenge and the satisfaction was to be able to assemble all the key stakeholders that were required, right? People who built the cells into the modules, into the panels. There were people who essentially did the what is called EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. People who built these solar farms,
True.
and then there were people who actually delivered the power into the distribution companies, or what are called discoms. So it's a very complex value chain of very different industries, different sets of people, ministries, industries, and such. The SolarCon platform essentially provided that first platform which brought all these people together. The people who created the equipment, the people who bought the equipment and built that in India, the government regulators, all of that, and then you need a fairly large ecosystem of people, maybe people who can install this, people who can service this. So we help put together the ecosystem at a nationwide scale through a lot of cooperation, right? It was not just SEMI itself, SEMI India, but SEMI India had a fantastic advisory board. We had Tata BP Solar, we had Reliance, we had Indo Solar, a bunch of, all the industry leaders who really brought all of these things in. And I learned a lot, right? It's not like I was a solar or a photovoltaic expert. I knew some things in semiconductors. Photovoltaics is a related area, but it's a very different industry, different profit margins, different value chain, different methods of, if you look at the sales cycle, very different, right? So it was a great experience in bringing together a vast set of characters, very diverse set of actors, if you will, bringing them on stage, choreographing that to deliver something that of meaningful substance to the entire industry. And as part of that, it was a great learning, I would say an experience, a growth experience for me to deal with the governments, officials, deal with the regulators, deal with the industry, deal with the equipment vendors, which is mostly from Europe and Korea, right? So they were sort of seeing, sensing the opportunity in India for the first time. So, all kinds of reaction, right? Not all of it is, they're not all excited. They're excited, but then, the stuff on the ground was a little different. So managing expectations, all of these, I think, contributed to a great, experience for me.
I actually want to continue on that. How do you see the progress so far? I mean, I think with respect to panels, we are still importing a lot of them from China. And recently, the government did announce a 70,000 crore initiative in the parliament this financial budget with respect to solar, uh, with respect to generating energy at home. So how do you see so far India progressing in this sector?
Yeah. Like as I said, the power industry is very strongly influenced by regulatory, um, actions, and it's no secret that China exercise some very heavy power using the regulations to drive their industry forward, right? And that had global implications, not just in India, but it had global implications. So that was the past. What we cut to the present, what we're seeing now is, a renewed set of policies that incentivize people to, really go back and do solar, not just at a, solar farm level, but at an individual level, at a residential level, at a commercial level. And with the whole EV thing also coming in, you're going to see some synergy between, the extra demand that is going to be put on the grid and some of it coming through renewable, right? And India is already a leader in wind.
Yeah.
And I think, the solar is going to have a resurgence in the years to come by, because I think the technology has moved forward. There are very favorable policies that are there. We are also all well aware of, how do we protect our interests while we continue to do, say, global trade. So I think there's a heightened level of awareness.
When we talk about your mentorship with startups, your leadership in the creation of a tech innovation and entrepreneurship hub at PS University focused on learning by doing and engaging with startups. How did this approach transform the way students and startups engage with innovation, and what impact has it had on the local ecosystem?
Yeah, my favorite analogy for this learning by doing, it comes from a similar one. If I have to pick another example that everybody understands, is it's like saying, okay, I'm going to teach you swimming, and I'm going to teach you swimming in this classroom, right? I'm going to describe all the buoyancy of water, the specific gravity of water, all the wonderful ways you can swim, and all of that without ever seeing water, right? So while it's definitely useful for people to know what are the different types of strokes and how does flotation work, what is some of the efficient moves for swimming and such, you really have to be in a pool, right? That's the only way you're going to learn swimming. Entrepreneurship is similar. So what we try and do is essentially set up an environment in which you get to uh, apply some of the principles. And today we have principles for pretty much everything. Before 20 years ago, if you had asked somebody, they would say, "Oh yeah, hey, you have to be born. You're either a born entrepreneur or you're not an entrepreneur at all." And the same thing was said about leadership as well. And we all know that that's not true anymore. Right? My dad was a government servant, right? I don't have any business background. In fact, there's probably not a single DNA in my bone that talks about entrepreneurship. So I think it's a learnable skill. And what we have tried to do here is to provide a safe place and an environment where people can come, try, fail a number of times, explore 20 different things before they lock on to something that they think is interesting. So the idea here is to create a safe environment for people to come and try things, discover themselves first, and then discover things that they like to do in their lives. And we've seen some dramatic results. People going off and building startups straight out of the university. People having a better understanding of how to apply some of these principles in a research environment, going off to do their higher studies, people going off into corporate research labs, to go off like Microsoft Research Lab, to go off and do some amazing stuff, right? So this is kind of a training ground. It's a playground of sorts where people can come, experiment, try things. There is lots of technical stuff that we have that you can build. There is prototyping that you could do. There are interesting, what we call AMA sessions, Ask Me Anything sessions. I'm sure which you guys do as well, right? To bring in industry experts, startup founders, corporate innovators to come share their thoughts, perspectives, and hopefully that'll inspire and excite people to follow their own passion.
Yeah. So I want to continue with the innovation part. So having monitored and judged innovation challenges at national and international level, including IIT Bombay's AIT and UC Berkeley, what emerging trends and disruptive ideas in the startup ecosystem excite you the most? Additionally, what key challenges do early stage startups face, and how can founders navigate these effectively while shaping their product strategy and roadmap?
Yeah. So today, one of the things that you can't escape, irrespective of where you go, whichever hackathon it is or ideathon it is the fact that the all-pervasive artificial intelligence, right? So that is pretty much coming across all of the different fields, whether you're in medical, education, retail. So there are a couple of key things that are happening that are fundamentally reshaping the way technology is applied from an entrepreneurship perspective, right? And I don't want to just single out AI, but there are a couple of other things that are happening at the same time. And one of them is quantum computing, right? And you recently read the Willow chip from Google, which essentially can crack something in 5 minutes that would take 10 to the power 26 years, right? I don't even know what that number is. I think they called it some number. So, I mean, just think of the order of magnitude, right? Something like that takes 10 to the power 26 years gets solved in minutes, 5 minutes. So I think what I'm now seeing is that students and entrepreneurs are seizing this opportunity to deploy artificial intelligence and machine learning to solve various problems. Let me give you one example that I saw last month at Google for Startups 2024. And this was about being able to take as a video. It was a particular movie with a very famous film star, spoken in Hindi, and the dubbing. If you want to do a dubbing of that in another language, let's say go from Hindi to Telugu, it takes a couple of months, and they said it took about 6 months, and you still have the sort of the clip that they kept showing was this main hero guy delivering a dialogue, and he's saying a dialogue in Telugu, but his movements are all in Hindi. And so it's not an authentic experience when I'm looking at the screen as an audience or a spectator.
Yeah.
What these guys have been able to do is, I mean, first morph the voice, right?
Yes.
The voice in Telugu is the voice that was originally done, right? So it's almost so close that you think that, this famous hero is certainly learned a new language in his life. That's number one. The second thing is the lip sync is just perfect, right? He's delivering dialogues in Telugu, not in Hindi. So that's the application of artificial intelligence. And then, this whole thing, they found a particular Hollywood thing where this particular technology is going. So what we're finding is that one is this amazing deployment of technology. The second thing is the new vistas that are opening up as a result of. So this small little startup, essentially now has a tie-up with, this lab in Hollywood, right? And they're going to be deploying this. And I'm sure the same technology can be applied in Bollywood and any of the other industry uh, marketplaces. So it's an exciting time if you're an innovator, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a product manager. I mean, the canvas is in many ways unlimited, right? It's a question of your imagination. It's a question of being able to solve things creatively and bringing people, right? Building the team we talked about. How do you build a team of inspired members to come in and crack a problem in very different ways than what is out there, that delivers a compelling customer value proposition and creates an amazing experience. So I'm excited every time I get invited to some of these things to see how technology is getting deployed in so many new ways to solve problems that we thought could never be solved before.
Yeah, as a consultant, I mean, given your vast experience with a bunch of in many areas, you've worked with major companies like Microsoft and Intel, and you've conducted custom workshops on product and corporate innovation. What are some of the common missteps you see organizations make in product development, and how can they be avoided?
Here is kind of a tough one. A lot of people say that they want to innovate, but they don't necessarily mean it. What do I mean by that, right? So just because, I have 10 people in a room with lots of post-it notes and business model canvases, spending 2 days, brainstorming, coming up with BMC, the business model canvases. There's a fancy term for that, and that's called innovation theater. It feels like you're doing some innovation, but nothing much comes out. And the reason is, you don't start with a fundamental business problem, right? What is the business problem we are trying to solve? For which set of customers? What's my portfolio look like, right? Am I doing 20 things and I'm going to add one more thing on top of that to say, hey, my innovation bucket is full? So there are a number of things. So in order to simplify this, I'll leave you with maybe one or two things that would help anybody, not just a particular company, whether it's a startup or an MNC, is having a clear idea of what your end business goal is, right? For instance, you might want to say that we want to outcompete all of the folks that are out there in your particular area in terms of cost. You might want to outcompete them in terms of customer experience. You might want to outcompete them with sheer performance, right? In the case of a CPU or a processor. I mean, it might be just speed, right? Or the number of computations, the amount of time it takes to train an LLM. So something like that. But having that idea and then breaking it down into smaller things, and then being able to inspire a set of people to, wholeheartedly embrace it. And when you try to do something that's a breakthrough, you are going to fail multiple times. And what I've seen happen in the corporate space is that people give up too soon. Our own experience was we floundered for 2 years. Now, it was so easy to shut down this group, to say, you're wasting your time, right? You've done this for 2 years. We have not seen anything. Now's the time to pack up and go. But there was this crazy manager who essentially said, you know what, 2 years, this is fantastic. We have learned so much about, how not to build a financial model that doesn't give us the returns that we need, how not to build, this product that is so complex that it can't be manufactured in a reliable way. So we learned. It's like that old cliched saying that, when Thomas Alva Edison said, I only found 10,000 ways, this thing wouldn't work. So it's a similar kind of a thing. So people give up too soon. People don't build inspired teams. They say, let's go build this complex product which has all these 20 features or 200 features. That's kind of pointless. Because at some point in time, when you start hitting failures, the features and functions don't come to your rescue, right? Nobody's excited to build another product with 200 features and functions. But if there is that thing, and I call it, the soul of a team, right? The soul of a team for us was, can we build a super complex product out of India, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing. It need not be relevant for everybody. That was 20 years ago, but now it might be something else. Maybe can I solve, the health issues of nation scale thing using some of the amazing methods of AI that is currently available at 1/10 the cost and maybe 10x the reach. So I think these are some of the things that I continue to bounce against. And what I hope to do in these conversations that I have with these senior execs and others is to be able to tell them that, innovation is filled with pain. But if you have a higher purpose, you can do some marvelous things and have a magical, journey through this thing, even as you drive some of these very hard things to do. So, managers and folks like you, when you get out of IIM, are going to be leading teams that are going to be building some amazing products, solutions, and offerings. And, I would say your first thing ought to be to really understand the customers, develop an empathy, and have that same empathy for your team members. How do you energize the Gen Zs? You are Gen Zs, right? So it's not like Gen Zs is somebody else. You are Gen Zs. How do you inspire other Gen Zs to build some of the most amazing products that have ever been built and solve problems that have never been solved before, right? So you have an exciting challenge and an opportunity in front of you to be able to make a big difference.
Yeah, so I want to continue on that. You serve as a guest faculty at IIM Bangalore, teaching product and tech innovation. What do you believe is the most important concepts for executives to grasp when it comes to managing tech innovation in today's rapidly evolving market?
Yeah. I believe there are a couple of things that good execs bring to the table. They have a strong domain expertise. And by that, I don't necessarily mean tech. Right? It so happens that about 70% of the people in my session, I won't say class because these are all 10 to 15 years of experience. They're almost, VP -1 or they're already GMs. But what I've seen, some of the most exciting folks that I interact with is they bring a very strong domain knowledge, right? Finance, marketing, IT, tech. On top of that, they have a really good understanding of the business landscape. They come from retail. They understand. If it's somebody that let's say I'm talking to somebody with Walmart, they have a very good understanding of what Amazon does, what the company in UK, what is the retail chain in UK does, and a whole bunch of things, right? And the third thing is they really are able to inspire a set of people within their teams, right? Because the current landscape, right, if you look at it, is filled with a lot of uncertainty. There's more uncertainty now than there was 20 years ago, right? So how do you deal with this? How do you help people cope with this? This could be customers, this could be your suppliers, it could be your own employees, and ultimately, your own self. Uh, how are you self-aware? So these three things: a strong domain expertise, a strong sense of business, I would say business acumen, and the third thing is, everything to know about yourself and other humans, right? And bringing all of this together to, take on a purposeful task and, leading it is what I've seen, and that's what excites me when I talk to these folks, right? And they come from various things, from retail, aerospace, semiconductors, but this is kind of the common denominator, if you will, of these, very inspiring folks that I talk to.
And looking ahead, what do you see as the next big opportunity for innovation, particularly in the intersection of technology and sustainability?
Yeah, I think there's an very important role that is yet to play out. I mean, we've been talking about ESG for a long time, right? The environment, sustainability, and governance.
Hmm.
But if you look at it, we're just starting to see some early, metrics that actually help us to convey, the amount of ESG compliance that we have and things like that. But with the availability of blockchain, with the availability of AI and some of the other things, I think, we can definitely do much more groundbreaking work, which can help us to quantify the impact, help us to see the level of compliance that there is, and actually make a difference at the end user level, right? If tomorrow, for instance, I would love to see, a piece of soap. I'm just going to make it up. I'd like to see a piece of soap that says, okay, here is how, how much carbon footprint that was used up in order to make this, or here is, the packaging for the soap, an ordinary bath soap. This is taking 1/10 of what, the market average is. And I, for one, would be willing to pay, I don't know, maybe 5% more, 2% more, 10% more to use a product that is justifiably, right? And there's this whole thing called traceability that is there, that says, where did this product originate, in what shape and form? And here's the proof for all of that. So I think, the artificial intelligence plus all the sensor networks and there's some amazing sensors that are available out there, and then the underlying, horizontal technology, right? Could be blockchain, it could be any of the things, can help promote sustainability. EV, I'm super excited about. It has its share of, it's not perfect, but it promises, at least in a way, to control, the way you do it. I mean, there's still emissions. I mean, the electricity has to be generated somewhere, but what it does is it rearranges the value chain in a very different way, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to make it much more efficient. All right. So sustainability and innovation, if you kind of bring them together, I think some amazing things can be done. But I think the fundamental thing is not technology. I think, we as humans and we as residents of the planet Earth need to be less greedy, right? It's not the technology that is going to ultimately save us. And I think we have to fundamentally change some of the ways we use our products and other things to build in the sustainability. And then all of the things that I said just before, using innovation, using artificial intelligence and other things to be able to bring together a quantifiable, certifiable way, I think is going to make products that much more better.
Yeah. So, thank you so much, sir. These were the set of questions that we wanted to ask you because I remember I was speaking to my senior. I mean, so basically, we're part of the VPOT club, and the seniors, lead the club, and they asked us to, to bring in industry experts. And the first person who came to my mind was you. And given your tight schedule, actually, we were supposed to have this podcast sometime in October, but given the tight schedule that you had, we made sure to, conduct this podcast once and for all, because with the kind of knowledge that you bring and with the level of expertise that you have, this is something that every student will be definitely interested to, watch, tune into, and kind of get to know what is in store for them once they step out into the corporate world. So thank you so much for your time. Um,
Thanks for
So it's
being
my
with us.
pleasure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thanking for being with us. Thanks for giving us an insight into this industry, which is exciting.
Yeah.
especially at this point of time.
Absolutely. That's why I'm so excited for you guys. There is complexity for sure, but there is also tremendous opportunity to be able to carve out products, offerings, solutions that can definitely make the world a better place. And I think product managers are, in a very amazing place to bring about some of those changes, help deliver some of that value. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to share, my experiences, and some of the experience that I have may no longer apply, but some of the basic principles, I believe, will continue to hold. So if I can be of any, assistance to you guys as you go forward, please let us know. We'll be happy to, work with you. And if you're in Bangalore, always stop by CIE and check out. In another 3 months, we'll be in a newer place, which are much more bigger facilities. And so I would like to welcome all of you to come visit CIE at PS University.
Thanks.
Definitely, sir.